Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Cards and Comics, and today I'm going down further into my comic book collection, and I'm going to show you my Marvel comic book collection. And so I went through a big sorting phase, and I'm still working on it, and really trying to get my collection in some sort of order. And so I've just taken my Marvel books and just sorted them by alphabetical order for the most part. And I haven't separated Golden Age from Modern and Silver Age. I've just kind of thrown them all in the same box because I thought about doing Silver Age and Modern and Bronze Age, and it just got to be like, oh man, how many boxes can I possibly have? I got 2 boxes of Marvel books, and these are all graded. So these are my raw books. That's going to be probably a different video because I've got a lot more of those. But this is my graded CGC Marvel collection. It'll be broken up into 2 parts. This is part 1 because I have box 1 and box 2. I got my red monster today, so hopefully that'll carry me through this video. And we'll start with a book that I have another video about, but it's the first book in this box, so it's Avengers #1. So I just picked this up recently, so obviously you probably saw that video. Hopefully, it's up there if you want to look at it. But when I first got it, but obviously, this is the first appearance of the Avengers. Has a lot of cool early appearances. The cover's been swiped a lot, so it's a cool book, and it's something that I've always wanted. It's a good 1.5. I really like the grade or the appearance for the grade. So it's a very important book, and you can't really downplay the significance of the Avengers to the Marvel Universe now. And so this book will always have a huge place for the Marvel fans. Next up is a book that is not nearly as important, but it's just in here. I have a hard time with focus sometimes, and I just like comics. So sometimes I just buy books because I like the cover. And here's an example. So here is Avengers #20, and this has no first appearances. This isn't a key book in any way. It's it's a Swordman and Mandarin appearance, but it's a Stanley story. It's got a Jack Kirby cover. So I mean, there is some cool stuff about it. And I think that's something that you got to understand with these early Marvel books is there's some really cool art and people that are involved in these books, and even if they're not key, they at least eventually are going to get rarer and rarer. So I do think having some of just really cool early books is just nice to have. And again, same way for this book. Here's another Jack Kirby cover, and so this is Avengers #27. And again, it's an 8.0, so it's a little bit higher grade. This is a 1966 book. So again, and it's very Jack Kirby in the faces. For anyone who either loves or hates Jack Kirby work, they'll these faces are very classic Kirby. And yeah, I mean, again, an 8.0 is not too bad for a grade. And again, it's just having more books like that is fun. So here's Avengers #42, and it's an older book for me. It's scuffed up a little bit. Doesn't look quite as good in the holder as the other books. It's got a little yellowing. It is past the Kirby era, I guess. It's a 67 book, and you do see a Black Widow and appearance in this book, which is kind of cool. But again, nothing really going on there. It's just an early Avengers book that I've got over the years. Next up is Avengers 47, which has got a little heat with Black Knight because this is when Dan Whitman becomes the Black Knight. So it's a little important. It's a really cool cover. I like it when Marvel does these borders like this. This is like one of my favorite aspects of Marvel when they would do borders. I think Spider-Man would do those sometimes. in the 70s, and it gives it a almost like a sports card look to it. You got a border, you got stuff going on. It's just a really cool cover, and I really do like some of these just older books, and this one's got a little bit of a first appearance going on for it. Next up is Avengers 148, and I got this because for one thing, it's back when Kirby was back, so Kirby did the cover. But really, it's about Squadron Supreme, and I'm a huge Squadron Supreme fan. And that's a weird thing to be a huge fan of, I guess. But I was very affected by the Squadron Supreme story as a kid, because it was kind of like a twist on the utopian story. And I don't. A lot of people make fun of that story now, and you know, kind of like how it's kind of like all these tropes are in that story. But as a kid, like seeing like Wonder Woman's, or the analog for Wonder Woman's, husband become old and frail and dying, and seeing just like how these plans didn't work out for these superheroes was just cool. That's like a much different story to me than as a kid. And I think as an adult, maybe I think back and I'm, oh yeah, that's all been done before. But as a kid, it was effective. So I really fell in love with the Squadron Supreme, and even as an adult, I still, I collected this newer series, and this newer series always disappointed me. But I just, I like the character designs, and I just thought it was a cool idea. So I really tried to go back and get all the earlier Squadron Supreme appearances if I could. Um, Now here is Avengers 273. So again, like I said, I'm not really separating these out by a decade here, but 273, it's a 9.6, and so I'll kind of push these back a little bit so we can start a new stack. So the cool thing about this book, and the only thing that's really cool about the book, it's not nothing's really going on in it in terms of first appearances. So is this border, right? So I mentioned borders. So I mentioned in an earlier video where I talked about getting the Sears catalog wish book, like comics package, and in that package was a ton of these bordered books. And so at one point, as a collector, I was going back and trying to get all of this month's Marvel books because they all had the same border, and having the full set. Now you'll know now as the Captain America version, this book has a key first appearance in it, and so some of them have some keyness to it, but it's just they all have this kind of really cool anniversary border, and I just like how it looks. So I've always liked every one of these books. It doesn't matter if it was a crappy book, with no value. It's just I like that cover, and I think the X-Men version of this has got a pretty cool cover too. All right, next up. Ooh, this is a little bit of a nicer book. I gotta get a new sleeve for it, but it is. So this is Captain America number 100. So this is kind of the continuation of the old Cap series, and it's got Jack Kirby art, and just a really cool cover. It's a 5.5, so it's not a high grade, but it's definitely for a 60s book. I think it's nice, and this is a pretty cool book now, and I really just dig, you know, um, having it. I got it a long time ago. This is an older grade, and yeah. So Cap America number 100, cool book. Next up is a book I really, really like, and I really like this artist. And I really want a lot of, I've been actually buying some of his art lately, um, especially some of his Hulk book, but it's Jim Steranko. And his cover and all of his covers are just cool, man. Like, he embodied what I thought, was just coolness in covers. And again, from Hydra to just, this to me, like when I as a kid, I mean, going from the Kirby to Steranko, and just how more realistic the art and how kind of the superhero poses. I think Steranko and his use of colors, the guy was a genius. I really think he's underrated. So this is definitely a key book. So this is Captain America 117. So this was a book I picked up last year, and I'm really, really happy I've got it. This is just a beautiful color. I mean, this thing just pops at you. When I got it, that was the first thing, and it's an 8.0. It's a good grade. Obviously, it's the origin and first appearance of Falcon. Um, so obviously, with the series out, this is a big book now, and really, really glad I picked it up when I did. And yeah, it's just a key book. Um, Next up is a book I picked up in Lake Placid, and I showed some folks in that Lake Placid pickup. If you didn't see that video, here it is. It's an Al Milgrom cover, and so I've got an autograph. It's a 9.2. Captain Marvel 29, and it's a great cover. Man, it's a really great cover. Jim Starlin, Al Milgrom. Again, I think you go from Steranko to Milgrom to Jim Starlin, right? Their covers, the cosmic covers. Just, I mean, it set up a whole new way of looking at books, and in terms of just the art, and almost like Alex Schomburg, like with just everything going on in the background. It just really cool. And again, this is a fun book. I'm glad I picked it up. Next up is a book I showcased in one of my mail days. So here's Coyote number 11. And this is the first Todd McFarlane artwork that's been published in a comic book. So first appearance, Todd McFarlane art in a book in kind of a throwaway series, even though it's not a bad series. I've read it. But definitely not something that people are collecting today. Next up, I was very into this series, and I still love Frank Miller art, in this series itself. So this is Daredevil 180, and so nothing really happens outside of an Electro appearance in this, but it's just the Frank Miller art, his storytelling. It's a 9.8, but again, I'm a big fan of the run in this series, and it's a 9.8, and I think it for me, that the point is, like having you know early Frank, or I don't want to say early Frank Miller, but just this run in 9.8, I think is really fun, and it's cool, and that is something that I'm always going to try and get, is these kind of books in a 9.8. All right, next up, speaking of Daredevil and that run, here's a 9.2 of 184. I just really like that cover because it reminds me a little bit of the Batman with the gun cover. Just like you don't expect it. Just a cool cover. I wish it was a higher grade. I mean, it is what it is. Now, next book is the start of some of the books I graded. So I actually graded this book last year. So it is Eternals number 1, a 9.4. I picked up Raw, and so I graded it. As a comic book show pickup. They ended up grading. So a 9.4 is good. I mean, look. This book's, got some, dark, edges here. It's a tough book to grade, and I think it's good. I mean, I'm not a big Eternals fan. I picked it up just because it is a key book, and I wanted to have it, but, it doesn't kill me. It's not a 9.8. I wouldn't go out and buy a 9.8. It's just not a book that I care that much about to have. Sorry, I'm trying to dig in the box here, and sometimes I get stuck. All right, next up is the book before the Fantastic Four run, which is pretty cool coming up. This is one of my favorite all-time series, Excalibur. So it's Excalibur 1, and I've tried to I've looked for it a few times in 98. It doesn't come up that often. I'm sure if I say it, I'm sure there's 20 on eBay right now. But when I went and looking for this book, I didn't see many 898s, and this one sold. I think I paid 40 or $50 for it in a 9.4. But there's some first appearances. There's this Alan Davis artwork. This is something that's really interesting too. And if nobody's ever really seen the pinup on the back, it is just awesome. So it's interesting because I was doing some original art. Um, I was collecting Scott Pilgrim original art, and then I'm like, man, what are some other things I want to collect because the Brian O'Malley art was getting really scarce. And so I said, yeah, I really like this Excalibur. I want to go and see Alan Davis artwork and how much it costs. And I was like floored by how many people love his art and who love the series, and covers for this series are incredibly expensive. So it just shows you that, even though the books themselves, the comics aren't worth much, people did love the series and people love the artwork. And so original Alan Davis cover art and just artwork in general is just very expensive. Um, and again, it's not a household name. You don't hear people talking about Alan Davis a lot. Just like Steranko, it's like the people who love his artwork are hardcore fans of him, and his art goes for a ton. All right, starting the Fantastic Four run. Here we go. So first one up is first appearance of Gorgon, and I don't know, it's a Jack Kirby art. So this is kind of like just Calm Before the Storm, Fantastic Four, 6.5. Next up, let's see what I got. All right, so this is first real key Fantastic Four book I've got. It's Black Bolt. And again, these early Fantastic Fours, there's so many keys. I mean, it's kind of crazy just how many awesome books there are in this run. Next up is Fantastic Four 48. And first appearance of Silver Surfer and Galactus cameo. So it's kind of funny that everybody's like, 49's got first appearance of Galactus full. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. But the cover does say The Coming of Galactus. Now, this is a 5.0. And I do really, really like this book. I got it last year. So I picked it up last year while it was still somewhat affordable. First appearance of Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer's got to eventually become part of the whole universe because he's cool. And first appearance of Silver Surfer. So obviously next up should be 49, and it is. So 49. So this is the first full appearance of Galactus. First Silver Surfer and Galactus cover. So this is obviously that, Galactus on the cover, the speed, Doomsday, just very dramatic. So yeah, this book has gotten crazy pants pricey, along with 48. So again, I'm glad I picked these up last year. I did something right finally in my collecting, waiting for everything to just skyrocket in price. So two really cool books. Now the next book I've got is something I should have picked up. Not this book, but the one before it. So this is Ghost Rider 2, which is still a kick-ass cover. One of the coolest covers. And the early Ghost Riders all have awesome covers. So this is number 2. This is first full appearance of Damien Hellstrom, first appearance of Son of Satan. So it's a cool book. It's worth something. But obviously, last year I should have been buying the first Ghost Rider. That book has gone nuclear. I mean, I just saw one the other day at $4,500 for a mid-grade book. I mean, just I should have known. It's such a cool series, cool book, cool character. But I got number 2. Hey, I got number 2. It's a good book, and I'm not, mad I have it. It's just I should have known better last year and got number 1 when it was still somewhat reasonable. All right, next up is a modern book. It is Ghost Spider #8. So this, this is kind of a autographed book. It's a Peach Momoko Virgin signed cover. I like Peach. I really think you know they've kind of overdone her a little bit, meaning that they just did. I mean, typical company. Like, oh, everyone likes Peach Momoko art, so we'll just do one every series. And again, this is I like the character, I like the art, so I got it. I don't think that these are like investment type books, or just if you like the character and if you like the artist, go ahead and grab it. And I did. Next up is obviously going to be, to some folks, the biggest book that I showed. It is a huge book. It's Giant Size X-Men #1 in an 8.5. So this is a really interesting story for me because I've had this book a few times. In fact, I told you a story when I was going through my Schomburg books, my first Schomburg video, which will either be posted before this or after this. But in that video, I talk about that I went into a dealer looking to buy this book, Giant Size X-Men 1 and Incredible Hulk 181, and I ended up buying both. I traded the Giant Size X-Men, which was an 8.0, straight across for an 8.5 Amazing Spider-Man 129. This is right when the Punisher series was coming to Netflix, and yeah, not something to write home. But I still have the 129, so there's that. But I really wish I hadn't done that. But last year I went and purchased this book before it blew up, so now I have the 8.5, which is a little higher grade. This is off-white pages. Great book. I'm glad I have it. I think this is one of those times when you just sit on a book like this. I don't pay attention to prices on this book at all. For some of these keys, you just, if you have them, don't even look at the prices unless you just have to sell, right? Because if you look at the prices and you say, oh, Giant Size X-Men 8.5 is, $4,000 today, and then a week from now it's $6,000, and then in 2 weeks from now it's $3,000. You get all worried. Should I sell it now? Should I hold it? Well, look, if you don't need to sell books, this is a book you just put aside and say, like, when I get old and I get rid of my comic collection or sell to retire, this book will be worth more than it is today. Period. And that's just how you got to look at it. You can't sell this book if you have it, if you don't need to, unless you're going to upgrade or something like that. It's just one of those books. It's going to be a cornerstone of any I guess Silver Age comic book collection. It's going to be top on anyone's want list in the future. So if you don't have to sell it, don't. I traded mine. I'll never do that again. This book was never going to leave my collection for a long time. I'm pretty much not going to make that same mistake again. All right, so next up is a book that I think is really interesting. I picked it up in an auction, and it's the last issue of G.I. Joe. It's a 9.6. But these last issues, typically in the 80s and 90s, had really low print runs. So this is G.I. Joe 155. And I think people are really sleeping on how rare this book is. And so I'm just going to keep it and hold it. And I think it will go up in value over time. Next up is a book I graded myself back when the Immortal Hulk run was really, really hot. This was a variant I picked up off a news rack, off of a dealer, or at a comic book shop. And so I just grabbed it, sent it in, had it pressed. It's a tough cover. It's a cool cover, and no regrets. It's gone down a lot since that series has lost a little bit of its heat. But it's still a cool cover. Next up, Incredible Hulk 449. Here is the first appearance of the Thunderbolts. The Thunderbolts should be appearing in the MCU at some point, and I think they got a TV series, and I think they're going to be a lot of fun. If they do it right, the Thunderbolts should be just like the most like careless evil characters that find redemption by kind of like I would love it if like they try to do bad things but end up being good, and they just end up finally just giving up and become good. Like if that's the storyline, I would be like, yeah, awesome, let's do that storyline. I just think it's got to be fun because it's such a cool premise for a book of villains trying to be heroes but still trying to be villains but end up doing hero stuff. That's a great way to start a series. It would be a lot of fun if they do it that way. If they don't do it that way, it may not be so good. Next up, Invaders King Size Annual. Again, I showed this in one of my mail days. So this is an actual Alex Schomburg cover. Back in the 70s, they got Alex back out to do this cover. I think it's awesome. Marvel did this. I mentioned a lot. This is not a tribute cover. The next book I'm going to show you is an actual tribute cover to Alex Schomburg. This is actually Alex Schomburg doing a cover in the 70s, which is awesome. 9.4. I really want to get this book in a 9.8 one of these days. And then this next book is basically John Romita Sr. doing an Alex Schomburg type cover for Invaders #1, which is kind of a continuation from the story previously. So I do think they're kind of like companion covers. So if you put them side by side, they're designed to sort of be, I think they were designed, even though they're years apart. I think the idea was that this was for issue 1 that they wanted to really do a tribute to Schomburg. And I really think if you hold them next to each other, it's really cool to see how they look. I'm sure I go. Well, there we go. Just next to each other, and that's why I got them, because they're kind of companion pieces. So that's it for round 1 of Marvel. You saw I've got some pretty cool key books along with a bunch of fun books and a lot of stuff I just bought, along the way. Nothing, I guess, outside the giant size X-Men and the Fantastic Four books, a lot of stuff that's fun. A few keys. I'm glad I've picked up the keys along the way. And stay tuned for part 2, which you will see a lot of X-Men. So be ready for the X-Men invasion in part 2, because again, this is alphabetical. All right. See you next time. Bye.